Hello and welcome to MonsterKid Fury. I'm Callie. Joining me is Rich from MonsterKid Central. Hi, Rich.
Howdy.
And Rick from Film Fury. Hi, Ricky.
Hello, once more into the breach.
Today we have a special guest, Mr. John D. Hancock. Hello.
Hello, hello. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
Absolutely.
All right, Ricky, take it away.
Alrighty, well, Mr. Hancock, as many of you will know, is the director of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, Bang the Drum Slowly, and many other films. Prancer, another one. And we're just really glad to have you on, and we wanted to talk a little about your career. What were you always wanting to make films? How did you get bit by the bug of creation?
Oh, I suppose seeing movies in the Roxy Theater in Berwyn, Illinois. I mean, John Ford, William Wyler. I mean, Sands of Iwo Jima. I mean, all kinds of films every Saturday. So it was a wonderful introduction to film, I think.
And did you have a favorite director during that time, or a specific genre of Western?
I don't know that I even recognized that there were directors. I think the first time I was conscious of a director was John Ford's Long Voyage Home. I thought, gee, this has a strange look. Very black blacks and gloom, but until that point, I just was watching, John Wayne shoot down Zeros and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And did you end up going to film school? What was your actual education in the making of films?
None, just learn by doing, learn by reading. I mean, you can get a pretty good grasp on film directing by extensive reading.
Right. I love that. So did you start making your own films on 8mm or anything? Or did you volunteer? Did you get work as a grip? Things like that. What was the actual learning process like?
I went to a large public high school in Cicero, Illinois, and then I went to Harvard. And while I was at Harvard, I started directing in the theater. So I came to films through the theater. I did a hit off Broadway when I was 22, right after I got out of school, and worked in regional theater and in New York. I won an Obie and this and that. I mean, I had a lot of theater directing experience before I started to make films. And I got a grant from the American Film Institute to make a short. And the one I made was about businessmen who played touch football in Central Park, and it was very funny. And it was nominated for an Academy Award and shown on CBS's Thanksgiving football game halftime.
Oh, wow.
It was
Really?
a very kind of high profile short that people liked. And so I got my first two features out of that. I got Let's Scare Jessica out of that and Bang the Drum Slowly.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the visual look of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Did you shoot that on the same film stock as most films during that period? Was it Eastman? Is that what you
Yeah,
shot on?
yeah.
Right. And a lot of the films during this time, and I wanted to find out because your film has a feel to it very much like other films of the time, like Last House on the Left, in the sense that it's definitely about younger people kind of having a clash with older generations. Was that something that was inherent in the idea when you came aboard for it? Because the original script was quite different, and then you came aboard, correct, to and
Yeah,
changed it?
it was the original script was a parody of a scary picture called It Brings Hippie Blood. So, yes, the generational conflict was part of that original script. And I rewrote it entirely, but that remained, that aspect of it. And, it was, I had, just come through the 60s. And so it was very much part of what I felt too.
And did they approach you with the original script?
Yeah, they did. William Wyler's daughter was Joe Levine's development person. And she had seen the short, and knew Charles and Moss Jr. and Sr. Were looking for somebody to do a scary picture, and so she recommended me, and they sent me that script. I said, I don't want to do a parody, but if you let me rewrite it, I'll happily do it, and they did. So I did.
Boy, the faith in you,
And
that was impressive that they
Just
let you.
desperation. I don't think they had anybody else. I don't know. They could have found somebody, I suppose.
Well, I will say that although I understand what Rick is talking about when he says it has a similar look to other pictures of the times, I actually thought Scare Jessica to Death was much more atmospheric than anything I had seen to that point since like the early Universals. So I loved the look of that movie.
Oh, well, thank
I
you much.
really did. I know I saw it in the theater. I was lucky enough to see it in the theater first run.
Oh, great.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Yeah, Paramount released it very, very well. They had a wonderful campaign, and the title was theirs. I mean, we called it Jessica, and I think Paramount added a lot to this project, to
Hmm.
its success. Yeah.
so was it an acquisition by Paramount? It
Yes, it
was
was.
shot independently and then
Yeah,
okay.
the Mosses, B.S. Moss Enterprises was the name of the company, and they financed it and took it to Paramount. They were in a good position to submit things to Paramount since they had the Criterion Theater, which was the premier venue for big pictures opening in New York. It was on 43rd and Broadway. It was where
Now,
My Fair Lady would open, or Lawrence, or that kind
now I had read in a magazine that a lot of the inspiration of your rewrite for the script was The Turn of the Screw and Carmilla. Is that correct?
of thing. Yeah, The Turn of the Screw and what?
Carmilla, the vampire novella.
No, I never, I don't know that at all.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but it was a Robert Wise picture, The Haunting.
That I can see
What a
Yeah,
great
in
movie.
retrospect.
yeah, that was. I mean, the idea of a female character who's just out of the loony bin was stolen from Robert Wise.
And what about Carnival of Souls? Was that an inspiration in
I,
any
I,
way? Had you
I
seen that
don't,
picture?
no, I haven't.
Had it? Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking because similar aspects in terms of a female character who's sort of doubting her reality of what's happening to her at that point in time. And your cast, mostly theater actors at that point?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I mean, I was coming out of the theater, so these were actors that I had worked with or admired. I think Zora is especially good in it. I think the what's good about the picture, a lot of it is hers. Uh,
Oh, yes, definitely.
her vulnerability, and she just really accomplished, and a great screamer. If you're making a scary picture, it's very important to find people that can scream.
Absolutely.
And it was one of the few times wwhere she was the lead. Usually
I
she
know,
was
yeah.
secondary, unfortunately.
I thought she should have had a bigger career. I don't know what it was, but uh,
And it's interesting that you have two exorcist connections in your film, or ultimate exorcist connections, because the character of Duncan is played by an actor who went on to end up in
Barton,
The Exorcist as one of the doctors, Barton, right?
who is the other Exorcist connection?
It was Zora actually, because in Exorcist 3, she
Oh, right.
plays the wife of Detective Kinderman.
Okay. And I
So I
never
thought that was
conceived
interesting.
that. Yeah. Barton is an actor that I was part of my theater company in San Francisco and Pittsburgh, and then again in New York, and guy I worked with a lot and admired.
What a great looking guy. It's one of the things I miss about the way actors look now. He just had such a distinct look, and you're like, yeah, that's you're not going to find a lot of that looking individual,
No, he's not a traditional leading man, right?
right? But that's
Yeah,
what I appreciate about it
yeah,
so
right,
much.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
he,
So
absolutely.
now your shooting locations, you shot in Connecticut. Was it meant to be Connecticut, or was it meant to be New York in your eyes?
it was meant to be a farm near New York,
Okay.
uh, that we shot in Connecticut because Bill Bottolato, who was the production manager and kind of the line producer on it, had a uh, weekend place near East Haddam, and he thought it was a good place to look for locations, and it was. So we all stayed in Old Saybrook. It was a wonderful, very happy place for a crew to stay. And shot in Chester, and I don't know where that's a very scary house. I drove through there, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and saw some of the locations, but I couldn't find the house. People sometimes will this is a kind of cult favorite. People will take their vacation and go look for locations, and they know where the house is, and they send me pictures of the waterfall, that kind of thing. So
That's very much what I like to do. So I'm that kind of geek. I'm also I also grew up in Connecticut, although I live in Florida now. I spent half of my life in Connecticut, and
where in Connecticut?
Hamden, which is on the outskirts of New Haven.
Okay.
But I went back to visit last week, probably a week ago today. I was in Old Saybrook. So,
oh really?
Oh yeah, I absolutely love it. I love Old Saybrook and Mystic and those things out near New London.
Me too.
Yeah. Are you anywhere near Connecticut where you live?
I live in Northwest Indiana, an hour and a half from Chicago. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
I was driving to the Cape, and I from New York, so I stopped by.
What a good idea.
Now, did you shoot the interiors in the same house as well?
No, we shot the interiors in the Dickinson Witch Hazel Mansion in Essex, Connecticut.
Okay.
So we had room to work. You have to have a place for the crew and the lights to be when you're shooting. And that Victorian house that was so scary from the outside was not suitable to shoot the interiors.
And was that house actually vacant at the time? Do you know if the exterior were people living there at the time?
It was. Okay.
Yeah, we were just curious because we've done some research, and the house is obviously vacant now, and it's sort of falling apart. So we wasn't. I was curious about whether or not people lived there at that time.
I don't think they did. No. We had an art department that wallpaper. I was into Klimt at that point, so we wallpapered everything, and I was very concerned that the picture had a lot of patterns like Klimt. So we wallpapered the inside of the Dickinson Witch Hazel Mansion. It served well. Essex is such a pretty town. It was a nice place to work.
The waterfall, was that in Essex? Where was that at?
I don't know where it was. It was near there.
That was a beautiful shot.
Oh, thank you. Nothing was more than 40 minutes from Old Saybrook, I felt, or maybe 50, but nothing at all.
Because I remember that was one of the first things I thought about it when I saw it, because I saw it on late night TV with my mother. It was on CBS television. We watched it. And that waterfall scene, I just remember thinking, even at that time, it gave such scope to the picture. It's something you don't even see in a lot of lower budgeted horror films at the time. Did you find the location, or was it kind of like the house you just drove by and saw it at some point? Who found that?
I don't remember. I imagine we had a location scout.
I got you.
Remember. It's a long time ago.
No worries. Now, so you get the film, but how long did it take to shoot it?
25 days.
25 days. So from the time you completed the film until its pickup with Paramount, how much time had passed in between?
Oh, quite a time.
Oh, okay. So it was released in 1971, so you shot it a couple years earlier at that point?
No, not a year. It was not a year in the editing. It was, I suppose, 9 months in the editing, something like that. And I don't remember exactly, but it was not an easy picture. They had hired a kind of schlocky editor the Mosses had to edit it, and he was cutting while I was shooting. So I got back. It's one of those terrible experiences you can have as a director, where you get back from location and the editor shows you what he's done, and he had chopped it up into tiny little pieces. Close up, close up, close up, close up, close up, close up. And it was not at all the rhythm that I had intended. He said, well, I wanted to give it energy. I said, yeah, but this is a film that needs tension more than energy. And so I made them put it all back together. Now, that's easy to do now with the Avid, right?
Right.
But then it was a lot of work on the part of the assistant editors to undo all those splices and put things back into daily rolls and start from scratch. And that's not how to begin a collegial working relationship with an editor. But we managed to survive it. He edited the whole picture, but it started awkwardly.
Started shakily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there less tension the more you got into re-editing the picture? Did he?
Yeah. I think he kind of accepted how it should be. He was also encouraged by, the Mosses saw what I was saying too. So at a certain point, though, towards the end of the editing, the picture was taken away from me for a week. So Charles Moss Jr. could supervise the editing. And evidently what he did didn't work out because it was after a week it was given back, much to my satisfaction.
So the film comes out. How was it perceived by critics at the time?
It got mixed reviews. They some of them raved about it. Others were unhappy with the ambiguous ending at the time. Now, one of the things that people are really liking about it now is that you don't know whether it's in her mind or not. Right. But at the time, that was confused some of the critics, and I think audiences too.
I'm sorry to hear that, because I always thought that the ending, the ambiguous ending, was one of its strong points. I loved it. I got it immediately.
That was my hope as well. Yes.
Yeah.
But there was a point where I thought, in the wake of mixed reviews like that, I thought, ooh, I made a mistake. But it turns, it's like wine; it gets better in the barrel. So.
Absolutely. And today's audiences are more into that type of horror, really, where you don't spell everything out.
Right.
So it's like John Carpenter said, we can't talk about the good or the great films now. You have to wait 20 or 30 years. Then we'll see what the great movies are.
Right.
So after that, you went into, was it Bang the Drum Slowly? Was that the next picture you did?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And that was initiated by a wealthy lawyer in Chicago. He'd been the lawyer for the Hiltons, Maurice Rosenfield, and he had a heart attack and spent a year recovering, going to Cub games. And he wanted to make a film about baseball. And he saw my short on that Thanksgiving football game and thought, oh, here's someone that could do a sports film. So he approached me about that. It was a book that I had some knowledge of because Mark Harris had been close to the theater that I ran in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
See, and what I love about your retelling of this is I love the idea that these films were being financed by smaller outfits as opposed to major studios. Because what a great story to hear about a gentleman who has a heart attack, decides he wants to do something else with his life, decides he's going to produce this movie, and it's this great aligning of stars, if you will.
Yeah. No, we were very lucky. He proved to be very difficult, but he had the money to do it. He wanted to do it. He had, it's a fabulous book. So he knew when something was good. And he didn't fire me. One of the awkward conflicts we had is he didn't want me to shoot close-ups. He'd read in some book that close-ups were the clutch of a bad director. Were the crutch of a bad director. So I just went ahead and shot them anyway, and he bitched, but didn't fire me. So.
So that's so funny because in my own work, I love close-ups. And when I watch movies, usually I complain to my wife. I'm like, man, why don't they do a close-up in this scene?
Yeah, no, and also the script was much longer than we could eventually. He also insisted on a lot of events being in the picture that uh, I would not necessarily have left in the script. So I knew we had a very long script, and I knew we were going to have to to cut time down. And how do you do that? You with close-ups, you eliminate parts of scenes and that kind of stuff. You can't. You have to be able to edit,
Absolutely.
and so I shot it to edit in spite of him. But there are still people who worked on it who fantasize that they had themselves delivered to him in a packing crate and come out and kill him and his entire family. So he was not well liked. Uh, the the fact he was so difficult made everybody else get along, though. I mean, you could have seen where Moriarty and De Niro might have come to grief, but it, everybody else, it all went smoothly. Everybody liked each other because Maury was so difficult.
So, when I read about that film in high school, the main reason I wanted to see it was Moriarty, not even De Niro as much. What was it like working with him? How did he come to the production?
He was recommended by my lifelong friend John Lahr, who was the critic at that time, I think, for the Village Voice, but then became for 25 years the drama critic for the New Yorker. And he had seen him, I guess, in the park with Shakespeare. I saw him do in Anthony and Cleopatra. He did Octavius, uh, and came in and read just like Bobby, and we read them in various combinations. We couldn't figure out who should play the pitcher and who should play the catcher, so we tried. We knew we wanted both of them. We just didn't know how to position them between the two roles. Bobby says I read them 7 times. It's possible I did.
How do you feel about it now? It was like, maybe I should have done it the other way. Or are you still pretty happy with
I'm
it?
glad we did it the way.
So, what is Michael like? Is he a I'm gonna say complex actor? Is he a real method sort of guy? What is he like?
Uh, Troubled.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he plays rather florid jazz piano very competently. He had at that point, I think, trouble controlling his moods. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there were days when he was kind of sulky, but I mean, compared to how difficult actors can be, he was a dream. I mean, he was just fine. But I much preferred Bobby. There were each actor had their fans on the set, and I was more in the De Niro camp. But I'm still in touch with Michael on Facebook. He has a King Lear he wants to do.
Oh wow.
He's had a lot of trouble with drinking and bar fights and that kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of those great actors, unfortunately, they're acting to work out their demons, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's not enough.
I think he was.
Yeah.
There was, but before Bangladesh of Sully, there was an incident at the Alley Theater in Houston in which, for some reason, he had left the stage in the middle of the performance. I think because he thought the other actor was coming on with him. So there was a kind of strange, perhaps homophobia, and which shocked me because he played the gay Richard III that Richard Dreyfuss, the Neil Simon picture. What's it called? With Marsha Mason.
The Goodbye Girl.
Yeah, it's kind of based on the Michael Moriarty Richard.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Michael is more confused than, well, not that De Niro is normal, but Michael's more confused.
So, did either of them have their moments where you directed them a certain way and they were giving you the opposite? Did they ever have kind of the moments where they just wanted to do it their way and you had to call them down? Since you have such strong, idealistic actors.
No, it wasn't.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, the producer, Maurice Rosenfield, said we had to change De Niro's hairstyle, or he was going to shut down the production.
Yikes.
Oh my goodness.
I said, but Maury, you can't. He said, well, people get haircuts. I said, yeah, but not in the middle of a scene. I mean, and so I had to. He said, no, we're going to shut down. It's disgusting, that kind of big 50s way.
Oh, it was a cultural sort of
Yeah,
attitude
he
he
thought
had
it was
towards it.
too unacceptably unattractive. So I had to go to Bobby and tell him, right? And he said, "Oh my God!" But he made it work. He managed to, in the end, to do it.
It's so funny to picture that. To picture De Niro like, what?
One bad word with Bobby. At one point, I think Michael was unhappy with the staging of the scene, and he said, "John, you are the dullest director." That was my only encounter with him.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, I always wondered about that because, like, he worked with director Larry Cohn a lot, so I was always curious about that. It's like, well, he used Larry. He worked with Larry like 3 or 4 times, so I was curious.
That was later, though.
Yeah, he must not be as abrasive as some people say, but it kind of sounds like, yeah.
No, he's fine. I would gladly have worked with him again. Yeah.
So your next picture was Jan Michael Vincent in Baby Blue Marine.
Right. Friend of mine, Herb Allen Jr., who was, the biggest banker in the entertainment business, right, bought Columbia Pictures. So I had a friend in court, right? And so I was hot at Columbia. And Spelling Goldberg had a project at Columbia. And so they offered me Baby Blue Marine. And it was a screenplay that I'd already read. That Columbia had given it to me as a writing sample for Stanford Whitmer, because I was trying to develop another picture for them, and they were submitting him as a writer, and I liked it. So I was not happy with the casting of Jan. He was not my choice at all, and I was told it was that or nothing, and that was a little abrasive to me, because I had just discovered De Niro, and I felt that I should be trusted to cast Adam Arkin, who I thought would have been wonderful.
Oh, that would have been.
Yeah, and I mean, Jan had been in a couple pictures, White Line Fever, and this and that had done business, but it was one of those kind of middle, meaningless names that nobody actually comes to see. Do girls that come to at that point? I don't think he had any audience at all that mattered. So I felt it was self-defeating not to cast the best actor. That was one of the wonderful things about Bang That I'm Slowly, is that we were able to cast just who would be best, if we weren't into the name business.
So they were already thinking of that type of thing. What type of recognition with the public?
Yeah. It was either Richard Thomas or Jan Michael Vincent. And
Richard Thomas would have been interesting as well.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting choice.
He would have been
better.
Now, so Jan gets pushed onto you, unfortunately.
And I fought as hard as I could, but I should have quit. And maybe I would have won the Adam Arkin battle if I had quit, but I didn't.
So when you stayed on,
I thought, here's Spelling Goldberg. They've had a lot of success. I mean, maybe they know something I don't. So that was a mistake.
So how did it affect your outlook going into the film? Did you have a good relationship with Jan?
Oh, sure, yeah. No, we had a good relationship. I just felt his abilities were limited, and that he was not right for the part. I mean, Jan looks like Baby Blue Marine is about an unsuccessful Marine, and kind of a schlub, and which Adam Arkin, of course, specializes in, and and Jan looks like he would not have been, but he does look like he would have been a terribly successful Marine.
Oh, especially at the time, good looking and cut, and
Yeah,
yeah, he looks like he would have been, in, like you said, a successful Marine.
yeah. Um, you know, I was anxious to cast Glennis O'Connor, whose work I liked a lot.
Mhm.
Sue Menges tried to get me to cast Sybil Shepherd. Should I have done that? I was also living with Lindsay Wagner, who I might possibly have cast. Probably should have cast just out of,
The Bionic Woman, that would have been interesting. Yeah.
yeah, out of loyalty and love. But I didn't. I cast Glennis. Uh,
And how did you feel about the film overall once it was all said and done? Did you have final cut on the picture? Or did you have
I
any issues again? Or
I had no editing issues on it. I was happy with it except for Jan. I mean, I don't think the picture works. I felt that I chickened out on a visual thing. I saw it as like what I wanted to do was it's a very sentimental, sweet story, and I wanted to do a kind of candy box. Uh, I wanted to umbrellas of Cherbourg look, a kind of oversweet look
right.
um, to for this oversweet story, and I wanted to hire Nando Scarfiotti, but his fees were too big; they wouldn't let me hire him. So I hired a kind of journeyman production designer who, left to their own devices, production designers just make things look real. They, on the whole, I mean, the, the guy that did The Godfather obviously is an exception, but mostly they just make it look real and they don't have much taste for artificial style, and it needed an artificial style. And I had a designer from the theater who wanted to paint lavender shadows on the shaded on the dark sides of the trees and the forest scenes and that kind of stuff, but that was too expensive. But I didn't bring off the visual world that I wanted. I wanted an oversweet visual world, and I did not achieve it.
Now you Laszlo shot that for you, Laszlo Kovacs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Did
like
did
Leslie.
he see what you were going for, and you both just weren't able to?
Once again, he paid lip service to it, but he said, "We'll shoot Fuji." His idea of how to achieve what I wanted was to shoot Fujifilm, which his friend had just used for Chinatown.
Mhm.
Um, but Fuji's just another film stock. I mean, we needed filters and we needed color distortions. We needed, a pink, and we needed a more stylized look. Uh, I felt.
Wolfen, it says that you were an uncredited director. How did that come about? What was the situation there?
Well, a good friend of mine, Mike Medavoy, was running Orion, right, or
Mhm.
effectively running Orion on the West Coast, and he brought that to me. They had a 4 hour plus rough cut from the director that he had hired and advocated very strongly, Mike Wadley, who had turned out not to be the right choice. I mean, Mike had done Woodstock, but had never done a fiction picture, and they had decided to make a kind of a message picture about the environment out of what was a kind of a B picture, very scary book. And so they had a
That was
message.
a Whitley Strieber book, correct?
Yeah, it was a very, very scary, very effective book. And Orion was in trouble. Interest rates were running 22%, and they had to have something that they could show to the Hollywood that wouldn't disgrace them, and something that they could release. So they replaced him. And I came in and shot the wolves that they had never shot, and also shot a couple scenes to try to make sense out of the plot. But I didn't do much directing on it. What I did do was control the editing and cut it down to make it effective. And I think it's a decent picture. I didn't want my name on it,
Right.
but I think I made it work well enough, as well as I could, as well as they would let me.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to do was the book was about a creature, not about a real wolf. Real wolves look like sad dogs, and what it was about a kind of werewolf, and I wanted to reshoot the wolves, with wolf and not with wolves. And they'd had so much money in it they didn't want to chase.
Mm.
I also wanted to eliminate some of the plot lines, but they had spent so much money on the sets for them that they wanted little fragments of them kept in. So it was not entirely as I would have done it, but I made it work as well as I could within the limitations of
Now,
the
your
things.
proposal to have an actual creature was
Yeah.
your idea to actually have something designed?
Yeah,
Okay.
with children or something,
Whatever it takes. I got you.
Yeah.
So now this seems to be recurrent with you, unfortunately. Just situations where you're having to really fight sometimes with the money people to get your ideas across.
That was
And
not,
I think
that was not a fight. That was,
you don't think that was a fight?
no. Where else do I have that? Oh, with
Well,
Bang It Up Slowly, yeah. Right.
right, with that, and then obviously from what I've read, you were the original director for Jaws
Oh, yes,
2,
right, yeah. I was
and Howard Sackler brought you into that project,
yes,
or suggested you?
he did, and I also knew Dick Zanuck who was a fan of the short, and also a fan of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. That's really the picture that got me the job.
Mm.
You had a lot of fans of that, including Rod Serling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was I found that out later. It's very pleasing to me.
So then Mr. Zanuck and Mr. Sackler bring you in on it.
Yeah.
What was the state of the project at that time?
A first draft, a very ineffective first draft from Sackler, and my wife and I went off to Ibiza to try to get a second draft out of him that was equally ineffective. So I tried to find somebody else to write it, and went through a whole bunch of candidates that either would not do it or weren't really someone I wanted to entrust with it. And then my wife, I said, why don't you try some scenes? And everybody loved the scene she did, so she got the job.
Very cool.
That's fantastic. So what was her draft to the best of your memory? What was her idea of how Jaws 2 would play out?
Well, she made the kids in it work, and she
Mhm.
made the sheriff's or police chief, he is, um, hauntedness psychologically effective. That the island is haunted, he is haunted, and the kids seem real and colorful and funny and sympathetic. That was her and then also, well, Dorothy and I wrote. We came up with a scheme of water skiers where the water skiers get eaten, and we figured out how to kill the shark at the end. So, I mean, we made a huge contribution to the thing. And this was a very dismaying passage in my life, this Jaws 2, because I worked very hard on it and was proud of what we were doing.
Yeah.
If you can get a copy online of her script, which is really good.
Oh, I need to read that.
Yeah, I have,
That's
to, I
fantastic.
have to read
Yeah,
that.
it's good.
See, because I love the contribution, the concept of the haunted shadow of what happened in the original film.
The
You
place
don't see a lot of that
yeah,
with Brody and the final cut.
right. No, I mean everybody thought that was a good idea. Universal and Zanuck and Brown and everybody was behind that. But then when I was replaced, they decided to want to give it a healthier, happier look. And, I was after a kind of blue, dismal, high contrast photographic style too that they decided they didn't like, and it looks like a normal Technicolor picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's what that's what I was going to ask you, if your visual motif on if you had made the film, if it would have had a darker feel to it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that would have been imperative for the movie, because with the events of the first movie, Amity would have changed.
Yeah, the island needs to be depressed and boarded up and have suffered, and now the thing has come back to hurt it again.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I wonder if that would have changed Roy Scheider's outlook on the film, because it's very infamous that it's an infamous story about how he did not want to make that film to begin with.
Yeah.
Did you obviously have meetings with Scheider at some point? Did he seem
Oh,
more open to your vision?
I shot for a month. I mean,
That's what I thought, because I've seen pictures of you with Roy Scheider.
Roy and I worked together, just fine. Yeah, but it gave him something to play too. Different than the first picture, and he was behind it, sure.
And did he voice any opposition to
No,
you being fired or anything?
I don't think so. No, I mean,
That's too bad.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Zanuck did. Zanuck fought, but he lost.
I know after you left, I know Scheider was very much hard to deal with, as I understand it, because he just wasn't happy about the situation. And
Yeah,
I would have loved to seen the type of performance he would have gotten for you with your original ideas.
yeah, me too.
So you shot for how long before
I
being removed?
a month, 3.5 weeks. I don't remember.
And did any of what you shot stay in the final film?
A couple shots, very little. They replaced part of the cast. They fired Ricky Schroeder, which broke my heart because he was fabulous. And now I'm a kind of against politics today, but he could cry and laugh and had charm and was likable. He was really, really a wonderful actor.
And did he play Michael? Was he the
No,
originally cast for?
No, he was younger. He played the
Oh, he
Sean.
played Sean.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. He
Hmm.
was funny and emotional, and he was fabulous. But a new broom sweeps clean.
Yeah.
Man, that's unfortunate. I definitely want to read your wife's draft, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read that too. I wanted to discuss the Twilight Zone a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
I have been singing their praises since the show was on. I thought that the '80s version is
Don't say it's better.
no. I think it does the original proud. I think there was a lot of great stuff in there. It highlighted a lot of great actors. There was
Yeah.
some damn good writing, and after all, isn't that what the original's about? I mean, I was so impressed with it, and you happen to have directed Profiles in Silver,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was just insanely good.
Oh, thank you so much.
Was
Yeah.
it a logistical nightmare trying to get that look of the Zapruder film, basically, without?
No,
Okay.
the whole crew and production for those Twilight Zones was very pleasant. We had a wonderful DP, and we had some of the best ADs I've ever worked with, and the line producers were good. It was Phil DeGuerra was the executive producer, and it was a very well-run operation. I don't know that he had the true darkness of Rod Serling,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe the better for Phil, but maybe not quite. If there's any lack in it, I think it was that terminal darkness that Serling had. Maybe we could have used a little more of in the 80s version, but I'm proud of it too, and especially of Profiles in Silver.
Yeah, that's just sensational. It has a good look to it, and just the story. I remember tearing up at the story because I just thought it was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
And that's not to take away from the library or any of the other ones that you did. It was just that was
But
my favorite.
they also, I mean, we were able to cast really good actors, which was nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
And again, that's the magic of the original series and
yes, it is.
and the
Right.
magic of the 80s series that I didn't find in I guess they did two other, one in the 90s and maybe and the latest one. I don't find that there, but the 80s I thought they nailed it.
That's great.
And
Right.
an interesting casting too, not necessarily um this isn't necessarily about your episode, but to have Robert Klein in a dramatic role
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
was interesting because that's what the original did too. They had Jonathan Winter in basically playing a dramatic role. So
Right.
anyway, I loved your work in that series, and
Oh, thank
I
you.
dearly I will champion that series till the day I die.
Great. That's wonderful.
One other thing I wanted to talk about uh, was it was one of your later movies, Suspended Animation.
Right. Yeah.
Would you consider that? Unfortunately, it's the only movie that I haven't seen that I'm ready to talk about. Unfortunately, but was that dark horror or
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? I will make a point to see it. I really just never got the
It's scary.
chance to.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah. My wife wrote. My wife's. We set out to do Deliverance on snowmobiles, but my warped wife turned it into Cannibal Sisters.
Right. Yeah, that's the
But they eat who eat snowmobilers.
it's just interesting. Deliverance on snowmobiles. I may never forget that. That
So your wife, she's an accomplished screenwriter. Was she already writing prior to meeting you?
No.
No?
Dorothy was a really wonderful actress. She was in Clute and Man on the Swing and End of the Road and a
Oh,
whole bunch.
wow.
Yeah. Much admired serious actress, although funny as well. But I got her started writing, and I don't know, we made 7 or 8 pictures together.
that's sensational.
We had a cottage industry. Weeds we wrote together, the Nolte, about a prison drama group.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's a great movie.
It really
Okay.
is.
The negative has been lost, and we found it, and it's never come out as a DVD or a Blu-ray, and they're gonna bring it out now.
Oh, who's working on it? Kino?
MVD.
Oh, okay. Smaller company, but okay. They make some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
great
Vinegar
news.
Syndrome is doing the scan and the color work.
And what's really interesting about your wife's writing is how it spreads throughout multiple genres. It's something we don't get a lot today. My
Yeah.
wife and I talk about it quite a bit. Writers wrote, that was the thing. They were good writers, and a good writer can write anything deep down. If you look at Bill Lancaster, he writes The Bad News Bears, but then he also writes John Carpenter's The Thing.
Right. Right.
Opposite ends of the spectrum, but both are damn good movies, and it's from the writing. It starts off with a strong base point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, to make a segue back to your TV work, you directed for Hill Street Blues, obviously Twilight Zone, one called Lady Blue, which I remember from as a kid because I just thought the actress on it was so beautiful. I had crushed on her as a kid. I'm like, she's so pretty.
Me too. Jamie Rose. Right.
Yeah, such a talented actress, and she
Yeah.
again one of those who unfortunately time forgot about her, and that's so disheartening. But what is a TV schedule like compared to film at that point? Is there one that you prefer more than the other?
Oh, I prefer a film, but
Mm.
I enjoyed very much doing episodic because I like to shoot fast. I hate long waits that kind of debilitate the actors. Uh, I mean, I enjoy doing episodic more than I enjoy seeing it. But um, of course, your position in terms of power is entirely different. I mean, when you're doing a feature, you're kind of like Mussolini, uh,
Right.
and when you're doing television, you're working for the executive producer, and you're
You're
working with
just following orders.
yeah,
Yeah.
you shoot in. I mean, like Hill Street, they wanted it shot in a certain style, and so you do that.
Yeah, a lot of moving camera, a lot of handheld too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And
Now, what about with Twilight Zone though? Because each of those kind of
you
have
could,
their
yeah,
own distinct
you could shoot,
style, right?
yeah, you could shoot any style you wanted there. But the Brad, I forget his last name. The DP was a relatively powerful figure on the set, and he wanted to shoot entirely with prime lenses, which I do too. So that was a nice marriage. But he had opinions, and Brad May, who then has become a director of episodic himself as well as a DP.
Yeah, he did the Darkman sequels, actually, the film sequels. So at least so when dealing with episodic TV, it just gives you more time to flex your muscles in terms of actual working with the actors. Then would be the best way to look
Well,
at it.
no, you just shoot a couple takes and move on. I mean, it's
Just
less
that
time.
quickly, huh?
Yeah.
I know Rob Zombie joked about when he directed an episode of CSI. He was saying that it was pretty much, yeah, he just kind of, they gave him the shot list and they said, yeah, this is what we're doing. And most of the actors, again, they've played the character for so long in some
Yeah, what
cases,
are you
they're
going
kind of
to
like,
debate him on the character, right?
yeah. So he was basically, he was just like, everyone kind of knew their thing. And I just had a chair with my name on it for a couple days.
I on Hill Street, everybody disliked Daniel Travanti because he was, kind of a prick. But
Oh,
uh,
no.
my experience with him was once I said to him, "Well, let's go again." And can you? He said, "No. I think when you see it, it was the last take was good. I think when you see it, you'll agree that it was just as it should be."
Interesting.
You're not used to hearing that, right?
Now, in '89, you directed a movie that I've seen quite a few times because I was a teaching assistant in between 1991 and 93, and it was for special education students. One of their favorite movies to watch was Prancer. They just loved that movie, so I saw so much. I was like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna watch that one again."
Oh,
Uh,
I'm sorry
but
you.
it Oh no, it's a great film, and I think what's beautiful about it is, again, it's that Carpenter thing of saying you don't know what the great films are going to be till later, and I feel holiday films operate like that. Because when I saw Scrooge with Bill Murray, I never thought that movie would become a staple, if you will.
Right.
So Prancer always shows up on holiday
Oh
movie
yeah,
fests and whatnot on cable
yeah.
and whatnot. Is How did that picture come about? Was that something you guys fostered from the beginning, or were you brought into it?
Um, I did weeds for Dino De Laurentiis, and his daughter Raffaella was like the company's executive on the project. So I got to know her and like her, and vice versa. And I don't know, months later, I was having lunch with her at the Dome, and she said, "I have a script I want to send you," and it turned out to be Prancer. She had developed it with her assistant Greg uh, something, I forget, uh, and had it set up at Cineplex with Garth Durbinski, who was at that point a giant in the exhibition business, and was in the process of starting to make movies. Uh, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do a picture about a little girl and a reindeer. Uh, but my wife Said, no, it'll become a classic. I said, but the dialogue is so terrible. She said, I'll fix it for you. So she did, without credit, and it turned out well. I was proud of it, and I'm glad I did it. It's about to have its 35th anniversary, and
Yeah, I know.
and in the area where it was shot, which is right where I live, uh, they're planning a huge celebrations called Prancerpalooza.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Have they re-released that yet to Blu-ray? Are they planning any type of anniversary for that as well?
I don't know. I
Uh,
haven't heard anything.
So what was Sam Elliott like?
Oh, he was great. He was wonderful. I love Sam. Uh,
He reminds me of Peter Weller in the sense that I keep thinking that's just him usually.
yeah, I felt that. That's what I love about acting is when it seems like them. It sounds like the actor actually saying it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, my mom was in love with Sam Elliott, so
Oh,
I
and
saw
all
everything with him.
women were lined up in the local Holiday Inn corridors hoping to snag him when they were shooting.
He Yeah, as my mom said, a damn attractive man. So I would see Roadhouse with him. I saw Shakedown, like anything he was in, my mom would watch it, uh, no matter what. So
And I thought the little girl in Prancer was very good too. She's making kind of really wonderful documentaries now about the environment.
is she?
They go
Really?
to Cannes. Yeah, I mean, she's doing good. Rebecca Harrell.
That's fascinating.
Oh, that's terrific.
Out of all the work you've done over the years, which one? Because and I know that's a difficult question because uh, most directors probably don't even watch their stuff down the line. But out of all your work, which one would you say? Yeah, this is the one I want to be remembered for. This is the one I'm most happy with.
Well, maybe Grind Them Up Slowly or Weeds.
Hmm.
I'm glad that Weeds is going to come out again on Blu-ray.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
And was there any other genre work you were ever approached with that you were like, nah, I think I'm good? Because I know most filmmakers, especially in the horror genre or fantasy genre, once they make one, especially in the 80s and 90s, they were usually approached to do projects that they've ultimately turned down.
Yeah, my wife had a very scary script called Lights Out that is still producible and good. That was a horror picture about a serial killer. The main thing I'm trying to get on right now is called A Love Story, and it's about uh, a New York detective who falls in love with a female serial killer, and it is a love story as well as a thriller and with a lot of violence in it. And so and Jeff Berg is trying to, he's a big deal in Hollywood, is trying to put that together.
Just that one line got me hooked.
Well, good, good. Yeah.
I'm in on that.
If that one comes to fruition, who would you like? Does your wife have like? Because I know when I write something, I'll have an actor in mind when I'm writing. Did she have anyone in mind that she would like to see play these characters?
Dorothy's been dead for a year and a half. I have a
Oh, sorry.
partner on that named Marcia Broadhacker that we wrote it together.
Oh, okay.
Well, uh, you know, Scarlett Johansson and, you know, I don't know, Charlize Theron, Natalie Portman.
Was there anything else you wanted to tie up, Rich?
No, I'm interested now to see suspended animation, and like I said, I'm a little ticked that I didn't get a chance to. So my apologies for that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
usually do my homework, but I guess that slipped through. But no, I wanted to tell you again that uh, that the Twilight Zone stuff that especially that you had a hand in had such a great feel to it that I can see the fact that you handled each one, that it's got your fingerprints on it. So
Oh, well, thank you so much. Great. I appreciate that.
okay.
There's a book about me called Hancock on Hancock by Michael Doyle that people are interested in learning more about, oh, what went on between me and Bobby on weeds or that kind of thing. I'm alarmingly indiscreet in it. Hancock on Hancock, written by Michael Doyle. You can get it from Amazon.
I'll
Absolutely.
check that
Sounds
out.
great.
Have you seen anything over the last 5 to 10 years that you like that's a good picture?
Well, I was very scared by Babadook.
We love
We
that
love
movie.
the Babadook around here. We love that
Absolutely.
movie.
Yep. It's a
I
favorite.
feel Jennifer Kent is an untapped talent. Why she hasn't done 7 movies since then?
There's an Argentine picture called Wild Things? No, Wild. I don't know. It was nominated. It was a contender for best foreign.
I'll have to look up that.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll check it out.
Just a couple things. I want to thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
Okay.
And from a film lover and fellow creative, your work's always impressed me. And I
Well,
think you've really had a impression on everything that you've worked in, from the horror genre to drama. You've done it all, and I think your movies are going to be studied years down the line.
well, thank you so much.
Same here.
All right.
We love your stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Just, man, we were robbed of Jaws 2. His Jaws 2. Oh my God, that would have been amazing.
Again, I never thought that the town would have been decimated by the first attack.
Right?
It was, and now that I know that, it's like I don't think I can forget it anymore. It's like it's like, what are you people, stupid?
Because everyone in Jaws 2, they're happy. They're going out on the water every day. Right. They're like, oh, like, remember that thing that happened a couple years ago?
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, but I didn't have this problem before I met him. Before I met John, it was like, damn it, now it's ruined forever.
Well, yeah, because I mean, look at Roy Scheider. We know that he hated making that movie.
Right.
I want to say, even to know Mr. Hancock didn't, lead to this, I think that's why he was angry. Not so much he was making the movie, but damn it, I'm not making the movie I signed up for.
That's a very good possibility. Or he just thought the ludicrous act of them having forgotten what happened a couple of years ago, and and that happy-go-lucky feel, that might have stuck, kind of stuck in his craw a little bit too.
See, and once again, it's a testament to him as an actor that he was able to pull off the performance that he did. But I want to see, tortured Brody. I want to see him waking up like Ripley with cold sweats. I want to see him just haunted. And you get to see a little bit of that in part 2 when he goes to the to the board and he's fighting over the picture and he says, here, this is an eye, this is this, he goes, that's a shark, and I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one close up, and I don't intend to go through that hell again.
Yeah.
Such a good scene. Now you take that moment and imagine an entire movie of Brody like that.
Right.
Just speechless, man.
Yeah, I when he was talking about the town being shuttered up and things like that, it just made so much damn sense.
Yep.
Because again, there's no clear sign that it's not going to happen again. See, if they had if there was some kind of bubble they could put themselves in, then they could be happy-go-lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't put themselves in a bubble. They got they have wild animals out there in the water that could go nuts again, and they're acting like it doesn't exist. So yeah, that made perfect sense.
And even if it would have kept to the ending because him and his wife came up with how to kill the shark this time out. But even with them killing the shark, what a great, still kind of almost 70s like ending. You could imagine them just finally packing up and leaving Amityville.
Yeah.
And it's like, yep, we're done. Time to go back to New York. I'll deal with New York over this. And it would be a sequel people would talk about.
Yes.
Where, It's fine for what it is. It's, but it's nothing compared to that image that he painted for us. I found his stories about, I guess, having conflicts with the money people very interesting. You have these distribution companies who
Yeah.
have gone into film production, then they proceed to tell a filmmaker what to do. I'm just like, oh my God. So that's always been with us, even into the studio system. It's
Yeah.
like, we're gonna edit this movie, but weren't you distributing copies of Skinflix? What are you doing? I don't understand. What do you mean you're going to edit my movie?
Right. And
Then they try it, and then they're like, here you go, take it back.
and the just the ultimate balls it must take to do that, because I mean, when was the last time you were so sure of what was wrong with your transmission that you went in and said to the mechanic, I think if you do it this way, it's going to work out better. You know what? Step away for a half hour. Let me get in there. It's ridiculous, but because they're in the arts, be, because filmmakers are in the arts, they assume that they can fuck with that.
And, to swing back around to Jaws 2 again real quick, something I forgot to ask him because I was just caught up in listening to him in general
Callie, get him
was
on the
I had
phone.
read I had read that Lorraine Gary, which I knew she had been hired on the original Jaws, namely due to her being married to studio executive Sid Sheinberg. But
What?
apparently in part 2,
Yeah.
oh, you didn't know that? Or are you
No, I'm
joking?
only kidding. No, I'm joking.
Okay, there's that actor in you coming out. You had me fooled. But apparently in part 2, he wanted her to be even more an active participant in the events, which is why she goes out to sea initially. But remember, in the final cut of the movie, she's left with the deputy.
Right.
Well, no, originally they wanted her literally having a hand in killing the shark.
Hmm.
And Hancock was like, no, that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back at that point, and they were just like, yeah, we're letting you go. Sid says you got to go, because he didn't really say what the final countdown was of, yeah, that was, my days were numbered at that point.
Yeah.
Because if you shoot for 30 days, you're pretty well into it by that time.
Absolutely.
You figure even if it was only a 6-month shoot, a month is a pretty good amount of time. And to have none of your footage end up in the movie, that's insane.
No, he said that like
He said a
maybe
few
one or two
shots.
Yeah, a
things.
few
Yeah.
shots.
Yeah, a few shots. But that could have been, Brody coming out of his house for all we know. Who knows?
So
Even
now
then.
the only way we can realize this movie now is to kind of do a weekend at Brody's.
I
You're
love it,
horrible,
but I
man.
hate it. I love it and I hate it.
I just picture two people and a dead shark in between them.
That would be Bruce. Bruce the shark.
I'm glad Rich got to have some little Twilight Zone love on this one. I'm glad he was able to talk about some Twilight Zone love.
Yeah, but it was very fanboyish. It killed me, but
But it's great though. I like that. You turn into what's his butt from Saturday Night Live. It's like,
oh
remember
yeah.
that movie? That was cool. It's like that's Twilight Zone you did. It was so cool. Like, thank you. That part, that one part, you were so good in that part. Oh, okay.
Do you specifically remember Profiles in Silver?
Yeah, because that's the one with Lane Smith, right?
Right. Man,
Yeah.
that was so damn good.
So another thing that I found really interesting is how Mr. Hancock had, I won't say a turbulent relationship with actors, but I did not expect the whole thing with Jan Michael Vincent until he went into more detail and it made sense to me.
Yeah.
Again, the character in Baby Blue Marine is meant to be a washout. And Mr. Vincent did not look like a washout.
No, he
Mr.
didn't.
Cut and good looking. Yeah. So I get that. And speaking of HBO, Wolfen was a movie that played on HBO a million times.
Yep.
And it's one of those movies that I hate it, because there's so much in it that's great, and then there's so much that's just
That's
bland
just
and it doesn't go
missing.
anywhere.
Yep.
And if they had done what he suggested across the board and actually created a monster, because the book, if you go back to the Whitley Strieber book, it's a monster movie.
It is.
And if they had done that, they would have had a hit on their hands. I showed Callie the trailer in
Yes.
between takes, and they really sell it on it being a monster movie.
Yeah.
You know, with the narration, you know, it can see in the dark, you know, all these things. And it's like Mr. Hancock said, have you ever seen a wolf? They're very sad looking. They're just like, I'm a wolf. You
He
know?
calls him a sad dog.
Yeah, sad dog. Yeah.
That was great.
Because
Not
the wolf is like,
majestic, not cool or vicious. No,
Just a sad dog.
Because the wolf's like, unless I growl, people don't know I'm a wolf. I'm just a dog.
Exactly.
But
So
it's like, man, they hire him again. It's that thing. Why hire someone with talent and then circumvent them? Why not listen to them?
so now he ruined Jaws 2 and Wolfen for me.
And Wolfen for you.
Because that would be damn near perfect if that had a creature in it of any kind. Even if like the Berman studio did it, it would still be would have still been knocked it out of the park.
Oh.
Because they were trying to be too artistic. They were trying to do the fairy tale crap, and as cool as that was, it wasn't cool enough. You know,
it was missing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I blame the inventor of the posterization effect, because they were like, we don't need a monster. We'll just click to that image all the time. That's the point of view of the monster. We got it. We're done.
Yeah.
We're good.
Sad. It really is sad.
And think about it. Those two additional films, if Jaws 2 had went the way he wanted it to, and if he had done Wolfen, he would have obviously taken credit for it. If they let him include the monster, that'd have been 3 banger movies, man, in the horror genre.
Yep.
Between those two, and let's scare Jessica to death, he would have been at the Masters of Horror dinners.
Yeah.
He would have been hanging out with Toby Hooper and clan.
And the one suspended animation that I really should have seen, you know, that might have cemented him in there too.
Yeah. But just what a consummate professional too. He's working with actors he didn't want to work with, but he didn't hold it against them. He still went and made his movie. You know,
and that's why.
I mean, if you were forced to work with an actor you didn't like, I mean, how would that go? Could you really divorce yourself at that point? You know, it is. That's got to be. Yeah, I mean, I guess if Jan was still a nice guy, maybe if he wasn't too full of himself, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I know he did develop sort of a bad reputation after a while. Especially around Airwolf time, it went into overdrive. So, another thing with Hancock that I found fascinating: his wife writing screenplays for him.
Yeah,
going from an actress into writing, and I'm just like, that is remarkable. I love to hear that. You know, there's something to me. It's like that line from Hustle and Flow when he says, "Every man," you know, and in this case, you could say every woman has the right to contribute a line, you know.
Callie, are you at all impressed with the fact that he and I were able to do an entire show with the word cock in it and never crack up?
Especially when he says Hancock on Hancock.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
I was on mute, so I could cackle as much as I wanted to.
I thought we were perfect when I thought, boy,
I'm very proud. I'm so proud.
You should be. Okay.
It doesn't mean he didn't laugh during lunch. Hancock
on Hancock. I was like, why? Why? Like, was that on purpose? Do you think that he meant it to be that way? Because
no,
I think the writer probably has done books on other people, and it's Strieber on Strieber, Spielberg on Spielberg, Hancock on
Oh,
Hancock. It's like,
I see. I get it now.
I wonder how many editors he submitted the book to. It's like, are you a child?
Yeah,
Stop
who
laughing
went?
at my book. I'm
Who went?
sorry.
What? No.
It's his name.
Yeah, not doing it. Sorry.
Well, Rich, as always, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, I enjoyed every hour of it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Ricky, do you have any last words you would like to say?
Hancock on Hancock. Gotta read that book. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Goodbye.
I'm not even going to cut you off. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Myself.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.